Hello, dear listener. Before we begin, I invite you to relax. Let your body settle into the surface beneath you. Let the weight of the day slowly melt away. Feel the gentle hush of evening surrounding you like a warm shawl. If you're here with us, it's likely that you're seeking a moment of rest, a space to unwind, and perhaps a story to carry you softly towards sleep. Before we set sail into tonight's tale, I gently ask that you like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us bring more of these dreamy worlds to life, for you and for others who may need them. Thank you. Now, take a slow breath in through your nose. Hold it for a count of 3, and exhale gently through your mouth. Feel your jaw relax, your shoulders drop, and your eyes become heavy. You are safe here. You are welcome here. You are exactly where you need to be. And Whispering Pines, nestled so deep in the countryside that time itself seems to move a little slower there. Our story tonight begins in a quiet corner of the world, in a place called Brumley Hollow. It is a village that does not appear on most maps. Tucked between sleepy hills, mist often hugs the cobbled streets in the early mornings. Leaves rustle like soft paper in the trees. Chimneys curl wisps of smoke into the air, and the scent of rosemary and peat often drifts gently through the winding lanes. In the heart of Brumley Hollow, past the stone bridge and beside the crooked lantern post, sits a little bakery. It is neither large nor grand, but its windows always glow with a golden light, and the scent that wafts from its door is something like toasted honey and home. This is the bakery of Thomlin Quill, known to the village simply as Thomlin the Baker. He is a quiet man with flour always dusting his sleeves and kindness folded into the creases of his eyes. But what makes Thomlin truly special is something the village children whisper about as they pass his shop on foggy mornings. They say, "Thomlin sings to his bread, not loudly, not with fanfare or flourish. His voice is soft, barely more than a murmur, a lullaby carried only a few inches from the dough." Some believe it is an old superstition. Others say he learned it from his grandmother, who once claimed that dough treated with love and song would rise with more spirit and more soul. Whatever the reason, one thing is certain. Thomlin's loaves rise evenly and beautifully, their crusts kissed with just the right crackle, and when you break one open, it is as if the warmth of the sun itself lives inside. Every morning before the sun peeks over the hills, Thomlin wakes in his modest stone cottage behind the shop. He lights a single lantern and steps into the bakery, where the cool night air still clings to the walls. The first thing he does is open the small wooden shutters to greet the sleepy dawn. He breathes in deeply and lets the chill fill his lungs, then gently stirs the coals in the hearth oven, coaxing the warmth back to life. He gathers his ingredients like a musician gathering notes. There is no rush. There never is. Everything in the bakery follows a rhythm, slow and certain, steady like the heartbeat of the hollow itself. Thomlin's flour is stored in a tall wooden barrel with a carved lid, smoothed by years of use. He measures it by hand, by touch, not by weight or scoop, but by feel. The water he warms is never too hot or too cold, drawn fresh from the stone well just beyond the garden. The yeast he stirs with care, waking it from sleep with a whisper. And then, as he begins to mix, he hums. It is not a song with words. It's a tune that lives in his bones, passed down from hands that shaped bread long before his own. The melody rises with the steam and moves through the bakery like a sigh. He kneads with care, folding the dough over itself, pressing with the heel of his palm, turning it gently, again and again. And as he works, he sings. Some mornings, it's a warm tune like cinnamon and honey. Other days, it's slow and thoughtful, like wind over fields of rye. The villagers say you can tell what mood Thomlin is in just by the smell of his loaves. If it's nutty and crisp, he's feeling hopeful. If it's soft and sweet, he's thinking of his childhood. If there's clove and dark fruit in the air, he may be remembering someone long gone. But always, no matter the mood, there is peace in the rhythm, in the way the bread takes its time, in the way Thomlin hums, as though he's speaking to the dough in a language only the two of them know. He shapes the loaves with gentle hands and rests them under linen cloths. The bakery is quiet now, warmed by the oven, perfumed with spice and rising grain. Outside, the fog lifts slowly, curling against the shutters. Inside, Thomlin watches his loaves with a patient heart. They rise without hurry. The fire crackles. The clock ticks softly, and in the golden hush of morning, the bread begins to breathe. And now, we drift deeper into the stillness. Thomlin once said softly, "The secret to a good loaf is never just the recipe." He said it to no one in particular, perhaps to the flickering candlelight, or to the quiet steam rising from the resting dough. Perhaps he was speaking to the dough itself. "You have to know the song of the flour," he whispered, as his hands pressed into the soft, pliant mound before him, with the same tenderness you might use to shape warm earth after a spring rain. "Flour made from grain that grew near singing birds will ask for a higher tune," he once remarked to the curled-up cat near the hearth. What they did know, without question, was that no one in Brumley Hollow would ever dream of buying bread from anyone else. But Barley from Quiet, Wenkist Hills, prefers a slower, deeper verse. Whether or not his songs truly caused the bread to rise more evenly was something no one could ever prove. Thomlin's bread didn't just nourish, it comforted. It lingered in the air and in memory. It warmed chilled fingers, slowed the ticking of clocks, and softened the edge of sorrow. Children believed his honey-braided loaves could keep bad dreams at bay. Elders swore his sourdough helped the heart feel lighter. And travellers who stumbled into Brumley Hollow by accident, mud on their boots, their maps useless in the fog, spoke of his bakery as if they'd de-stepped into a dream they had wanted to leave. So there you are, seated quietly in his warm bakery. A mug of clove cider warms your hands. The smell of cinnamon, oats, and toasting crust fills the air. His quiet humming carries on like the ticking of a long-forgotten clock. The bread is still rising gently in a wide wooden bowl. You are wrapped in a moment where time no longer hurries. Feel the way the chair supports you. Run your fingers along the smooth, weathered arms of the seat. Little carvings etched there tell stories of their own tiny stars. Vines curling in loops, the shape of a feather, small and soft. Above you, bundles of herbs hang from old rafters, sage, rosemary, and lavender, dried by time and story. They sway gently in the subtle breath of air drifting in from the chimney flue. The fire beside you crackles and shifts, and its warmth reaches across the space like a familiar hand. The dough rises in its bowl in time with your breath. Let your shoulders drop just a little more. Let your breath become softer. There is no task left to do. You are already inside the dream. Once, when Thomlin was still a boy with flour on his knees and a head full of sleepy thoughts, the bakery belonged to his grandmother, Maraloon. She stood tall, taller than most imagined a baker would, and she spoke to the dough in languages that no longer had names. She didn't hum the way Thomlin would later. She used phrases like low lullabies, whispered as though each word was plucked from the hush of the forest. "Loaves carry memory," she told Thomlin once, while pressing her hands into a bowl of spiced oat dough, prepared for the winter feast. "Every fold remembers the touch of your fingers. Every rise feels the warmth of the room. Every crust holds the voice that formed it." Thomlin would sit in the corner, eyes wide and arms around his knees, while Mara moved through the kitchen like a drifting breeze. She never used measuring cups. She never followed recipes. She scooped and pinched and mixed by feel, by scent, by the quiet rhythm of her own breath. One day, she promised, "You'll hear it too." And one day, he did. The first time Thomlin heard the dough respond to his humming, he was 16. He had come in from the garden, his cheeks flushed from the cold, arms full of winter carrots and fennel roots. Mara had gone to market that day, so the bakery felt especially quiet. He lit the hearth with a match from a tiny blue box. He ground the flour slowly with both hands on the millstone, letting the rhythm guide him. He cracked an egg with a yolk, the color of candlelight, and let it slide into the flour's soft center. Then he began to hum. Not a full song, just a quiet tune. When his grandmother used to sing to him when the rain was loud, or when the thunder rolled. Too close, whom, whom. And as he kneaded the dough, with hands warmer than he expected, something in it changed. There was a gentle quiver beneath his palms, a pause, a sound without sound. It felt like a string inside the dough had quietly resonated, as if it had listened, as if it had heard his voice and had replied in its own soft way. That moment stayed with him. He didn't tell his grandmother. He didn't need to. He had heard what she meant. Now, seated there in the glow of Thomlin's bakery, let your breath rise and fall with that same ease. Let it rise like dough beneath soft cloth. Inhale slowly. Hold for a moment. Exhale gently. The story is continuing all around you. You only need to rest inside it. Years later, when Mariloun had grown slow and silver-haired, she passed the bakery to She didn't leave a long letter. She didn't read a will. She simply placed her hand on his cheek, kissed his forehead, and gave him her wooden spoon, the one smoothed by generations of bakers. She looked into his eyes and said one word, "Listen." And so he did. He listened to the walls of the old building, to the low breaths of the fire, to the crackling of crusts, to the air between sounds. The more he listened, the softer he became, not quieter, just more attuned, like a violin resting in an attic, still carrying the hum of songs long since played, and within that softness he found something most never do. He found stillness. Beyond the fog, the village continued its rhythm. Carts rolled along the cobbled paths. Chimneys puffed grey into the air. Window panes flickered with candlelight and fire. Children laughed in the distance. Bells rang from the chapel tower, and fog still kissed the rooftops each morning before lifting with the sun. But within the bakery, time did not pass in lines. It curled and turned in warm, gentle loops. Each day was like the last, but kinder. Each loaf was a memory, rising from flour and time. On certain nights, when the village was quiet and the fog hung heavy and thick, some said they heard a melody long after the bakery lamps were snuffed. A tune made of thyme and molasses, floating between rooftops, curling beneath windows, reminding sleepers to breathe slow and deep, and to dream sweeter. Now, close your eyes and feel it. Let your own breath become the melody. Let it drift quietly, like flour falling from a scoop. Let your shoulders soften further. Let your thoughts float like rising steam. The fire beside you continues to glow. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing to fix or remember. Only the warmth of the bakery, the slow hum of bread becoming bread, and the voice of Thomlin, steady and kind, rising like sunlight just behind the mist. Let yourself drift now. Sink a little deeper into stillness. If your eyes are still fluttering open and closed, let them fall shut gently, like curtains drawing across the end of a peaceful day. The story continues quietly, like steam unfurling from the edge of a warm teacup. Thomlin leaned back against his wooden counter. wiping his flour-covered hands on a linen cloth. The dough was rising. The fire was steady. Outside, the first signs of morning life stirred in the village, the soft creak of a wagon, a dog's sleepy bark, the rustle of boots on pebbled paths. But inside, the bakery remained wrapped in its familiar hush. He moved to the small wooden stool near the oven and sat beside a worn book with no title. Its pages held pressed herbs and sketches of bread from long ago braided rounds, thick dark loaves, cloud-soft rolls. It wasn't just a book of recipes, it was a journal, a family memory passed down through flour-dusted fingers and firelight whispers. Thomlin turned the page slowly. A faded sketch caught his eye. His grandmother's handwriting below read "Loaf of Listening." He traced the words with a fingertip and smiled softly. It was said that if you sang to this particular loaf, just as the crust formed, it would capture the last sound it heard and hold it, warm and safe, in its center, and that if you shared the loaf with someone you loved, they would hear the echo of your voice long after you were gone. He had never tried that one. Some things felt too sacred. Instead, he stood and crossed to the small shelf where he kept the herbs. With quiet care, he plucked dried thyme and chamomile, crushing them gently between his fingers before adding them to the next batch of dough. He always added something a little different, not just for flavor, for feeling, for memory, for story. The bell above the bakery door rang gently, a familiar sound, light and round, like the note of a tiny harp. "Morning, Thomlin," came a voice, soft, aged, and kind. It was Mr. Albee, the village appian. His coat still held the faint scent of beeswax and summer clover. He brought with him a small jar of golden honey wrapped in cloth, traded weekly for his favorite oaten sage loaves. "It's rising well today," Thomlin said with a smile, nodding toward the dough. "It always does when you hum," Mr. Albee replied, placing the jar on the counter. "I swear your voice must be warmer than the oven." Thomlin only chuckled. He accepted the honey, placed it gently among his ingredients, and wrapped Mr. Albee's bread with a quiet reverence, as if handing over something more than food. And perhaps he was. Every loaf from Thomlin's hands carried something unseen. Not just nourishment, not just warmth, but stillness, peace, that rare, deep breath that people so often forget to take. Mr. Albee lingered for a moment, inhaling deeply. "I don't know how you do it," he murmured. "You make the morning feel softer." Thomlin smiled again, but said nothing. Some things don't need explaining. When the bell chimed once more, and Mr. Albee stepped out into the pale morning light, the bakery returned to its hush. Only the crackle of the oven, the rising breath of the dough, and the slow, steady hum of Thomlin's song remained. Let that hum surround you now. Let it wrap around you like warm wool. Let your chest rise with it, and fall. Again and again. No need to move, no need to think. You are safe in the rhythm. You are resting beside the baker's hearth. As the day drifted onward, the scent of baked bread began to fill every corner of Brumley Hollow. It curled around corners, slipped through windows, danced along fence lines, and climbed toward the chapel tower. Children on their way to school paused to breathe it in. Mothers paused, with baskets half full, drawn to the warmth. Even the birds seemed to gather near Thomlin's roof. Inside, the first loaves came from the oven, golden and round. Their crusts crackled as they cooled, whispering soft pops and sighs like logs settling in a fire. Thomlin arranged them on the window rack with care. He never rushed the cooling. Each loaf needed time. Time to breathe, time to settle, time to become what it was always meant to be. And perhaps so do we. Perhaps you, too, are like a loaf cooling in the light, settling gently, becoming softer inside, warming slowly at the edges. There is no hurry here, no clocks ticking, only the deep, kind presence of the bakery and the voice of the baker, always humming, always gentle. Later that evening, when the village had quieted once more and only a few lamps flickered in the mist, Thumlin stood at the edge of the garden behind his cottage. The stars blinked gently overhead. A breeze carried the scent of lavender and earth, and in his hand he held the last loaf of the day. Still warm, still soft, he lifted it to his ear, listening as if it might whisper something back. Perhaps it did. Perhaps it said, "This moment matters." Perhaps it said, "You are home." He set the loaf gently on the windowsill and turned toward the stars. His voice rose again in a hush. A lullaby made not of words but of warmth, not for the dough this time, but for the sky. As Thumlin gazed toward the stars, he felt the hush of night wrap around his shoulders like a shawl woven from silence and moonlight. He stood still for a long while, hands in his apron pockets, the soft breeze nudging at the hem of his coat. There was no rush to go inside. The world was quiet now, and he liked it that way. The garden behind his cottage had been planted by his grandmother. Still, the herbs rose every spring without fail: lemon, balm, sage, mint, and chamomile. He often came here at dusk when the loaves were cooling and the air was thick with the scent of earth. This, too, was part of the baking. Not the mixing, or kneading, or measuring, but the waiting, the breathing, the beat. Thumlin took in a slow breath and let it out through his nose, watching it curl in the cool night air. A few candles still flickered in the windows of Bromley Hollow, but most of the village had gone to bed. Children were tucked into quilts, fires were banked low. Only the old night owl kept watch from the crooked fence post near the chapel, and here stood Thumlin, quietly singing to the stars, not because he expected them to answer, but because it felt like the right way to end a day. His voice was low and slow, like honey poured from a jar, like wind over tall grasses. He didn't sing for an audience. He didn't sing for praise. He sang because the world, in its silence, welcomed the sound, and in that song, something settled in his chest. A stillness, a memory, a promise. When the song finished, he reached for the small lantern beside the garden gate. The flame inside had grown tired, flickering like a sleepy eye. He cupped his hand around it and walked slowly back to the bakery. Inside, the warmth greeted him like an old friend. The oven was cooling now, its stones glowing faintly in the low light. The last loaf remained on the sill, as if waiting. Thumlin lifted it gently, pressing it to his cheek. Still warm, still breathing. He wrapped it in cloth and placed it on the wooden shelf beside the journal. Then he rinsed his hands in the basin, dried them on a towel, and poured himself a small cup of elderflower tea. No sugar, no honey, just the bare flavor of blossom and leaf. He moved to the chair beside the hearth, and lowered himself into it with a sigh. The cushion beneath him, hand-stitched by his mother, gave a soft woof of comfort. He sipped slowly, savoring the subtle floral notes. This was the part of the day he treasured most. The hush after the hum, the cradle of stillness that held the edges of sleep. And perhaps now, dear listener, you feel that too. The weight of your body sinking just a little deeper. The space around you growing just a little softer. Let it be easy. Let it be gentle. Let the sound of Thumlin's breath and the hush of the bakery become part of your own rhythm. Each inhale a rising loaf, each exhale a settling crust. Outside, the fog returned rolling in from the hills like a hush made visible. It pressed against the bakery windows, softening the glow of lantern light. Inside, Thumlin finished his tea and leaned back in his chair. He didn't need a clock to tell him the hour. He listened instead to the bread. a sound only he seemed to hear, the quiet crackle as it cooled, the soft whisper of crumbs settling, the last stretch of crust as it sighed into stillness. He closed his eyes and listened. Sometimes he dreamed, while still awake, of hills that sang back, of rivers that remembered lullabies, of the dough itself, telling stories through its rise and fall. The fire popped gently, and the room settled further into night. Let your breath follow that rhythm. Let your thoughts drift like flower caught in sunlight. Let your limbs grow heavier, like stones warming in a summer stream. There is no place you need to go, no thought you need to chase. Just you and the quiet heart of Brumley Hollow. Just you and the hum of the baker's song. Eventually, Tomlin stood and extinguished the lantern. The light dimmed slowly, like an eyelid closing. He stepped into the back of the shop, into his little cottage room, where a feather-stuffed mattress waited beneath a handmade quilt. The quilt was blue and cream, stitched with tiny loaves and leaves and stars. He undressed quietly, folded his clothes on a small stool, and slid beneath the covers. The mattress sighed beneath his weight, welcoming him. The bakery had done its work today, and so had he. As he lay there, eyes closed, he hummed one last line, a fragment of a lullaby from long ago, and then there was only breath, the sound of sleep and peace. All around Brumley Hollow, the same peace rippled outward, through the garden, past the bridge, over the rooftops, to the sheep in their pastures, to the mill-pond understock, to the owls perched in their favorite trees, even the moon. It seemed, as you lie here, drifting ever further into rest, perhaps you too hear that hum, paused to listen, and now, perhaps you feel the warmth of the hearth, the softness of the quilt, the stillness of flowers settling in the barrel. It is enough. You are enough. You are safe. You are held. Sleep comes easy in the village that remembers song. Sleep comes easy in the place where bread is made with care. Sleep comes easy beside the baker's fire. The village slept. A soft hush covered the rooftops of Brumley Hollow like fresh snow. Though no snow had fallen, the moon drifted across the sky like a paper lantern, adrift on a still lake. Windows were dark now. Fires were nothing more than glowing coals, tucked into the corners of stone hearths. And inside his little cottage, Tomlin the baker dreamed. His dreams were never grand or wild. He didn't dream of castles or treasure or faraway ships. Instead, he dreamed of dough under his hands, of flour floating like mist, of the way the oven glowed when the morning was still young. He dreamed of rosemary sprigs and the sound of a kettle whistling in the next room. He dreamed of laughter over breakfast tables, and warm butter melting into crust. And sometimes he dreamed of her, the girl who once danced in the garden paths when they were young. She had laughed like wind chimes and smelled of rose hips and bread. She had moved away long ago, chasing something larger. But in dreams, she sometimes came back, and they would knead dough side by side in the silence. Smiling, Tomlin shifted in his sleep, murmuring a note of song under his breath. And then, the soft sound of bells, a memory more than a noise. The same tone that once rang from the old chapel tower in the heart of the village. It played in his dreams like a lullaby, rising and falling, guiding him deeper into rest. Out in the quiet streets, a cat moved silently along the fence line, its paws padded over stone and moss, tail curling behind like a question mark. It paused near Tomlin's window, nose twitching at the scent of bread still lingering in the air. Then it moved on, leaving only a whisper behind. In the bakery, all was still. The dough bowls were empty now, the shelves clean, the coals in the oven glowing faintly, like the last echo of a lullaby. Even the flour in the air had settled, drifting gently down onto countertops like snowflakes. Let that image settle in your mind. the quiet oven, the resting shelves, the dim glow of warmth. Long after fire, let your body do the same. Settle like flour, drift like a loaf cooling on the rack. No need to rise now, no need to stir. There will be morning again, but for now, there is only stillness, a kind of sacred silence, the kind that feels like being cradled in the arms of something older than time. Perhaps you can imagine what it's like to live in a place like Brumley Hollow, where the roads don't rush, where the trees whisper, where the mist remembers your name, where the baker sings to his bread, and where the sound of that song never truly ends. Even now, in the middle of the night, it lingers, soft as a breath, gentle as a feather landing on a windowsill. Outside Tomlin's cottage, the garden slept too, leaves curled inward, petals folded, closed. The well water shimmered quietly in the moonlight. The thyme and chamomile he had used earlier rested in the soil, dreaming their own dreams. Everything had its rhythm. The herbs, the oven, the dough, even the stars. Each one a beat in the long, slow music of night. Let yourself fall into that rhythm now. No thinking, no planning, only listening. Only being. Breathe in through your nose. Feel the air cool and clear. Breathe out through your mouth. Feel your body soften, just a little more, again and again. You are part of this quiet story now, a listener wrapped in the stillness of Brumley Hollow, a guest at the table of dreams. And the baker, even in sleep, welcomes you. Because kindness doesn't end when the oven cools, and warmth doesn't vanish when the flame dies down. It lingers, like the scent of bread in the rafters, like song in the walls, and if you listen closely, very closely, you might hear it now, that old melody, rising from somewhere deep, from the past, from the stones, from the heart, a hum, just for you, to carry you into rest, to wrap you like dough, folded gently under linen, to keep you until morning. Dawn returned slowly to Brumley Hollow, not in a rush, not with blinding light or sudden fan, but like a gentle hand brushing across a windowsill. First came the light, pale and silvery. It slipped between the misty folds of cloud, spreading across thatched rooftops and dewy gardens. Still sleepy, began to hum their morning notes. Then the birds, a tiny beam of the quilt tucked just right under his chin. Sunlight crept through the sliding, his feet into worn slippers, and shrugging into his apron like a knight into armor. Shutters and landed on the floorboards, illuminating flower dust that floated like snowfall in the hush. Just fragments, not full songs, the kind that sound more like yawns than melodies. In the bakery, Thomlin's eyes opened slowly. He didn't move at first, he simply breathed in the silence. His bed was warm. The scent of yesterday's loaves still clung to the air oat, and honey and rye. The village murmured awake, outside, but inside the cottage. Stillness. He rose quietly, not heavy, not rushed, just familiar. A ritual that steadied the body and quieted the mind. He lit the lanterns. "I'm ready," stoked the oven fire, which had grown cold in the night, but still remembered warmth. It only took a breath of flame, and it came back to life with a soft crackle, as if saying, yes. The dough being stirred, the wooden spoon knocking softly against the sides of the bowl, gently. And so the day began again. But like always, no clatter of dishes, no banging doors, only the sound of the fire catching. Let that rhythm settle in your mind. Stir, ... knock, ... stir, ... knock, ... like a heartbeat, like a lullaby backwards. Thomlin mixed a new batch of dough with his usual care. He didn't rush the measurements. He didn't beat the mixture. He folded, he turned, he breathed, he sang, soft and low. His morning voice, like velvet across parchment, he sang old folk tunes passed down from his grandmother. Melodies that spoke of growing wheat and finding the sun. He sang as if the dough itself could hear him, and perhaps, in some quiet way, it could. Some believed yeast responded to joy, to kindness, to lullabies. Thomlin believed it, too. The dough was heavy and cool in his hands, pliable and promising. As he kneaded, he thought not of errands or worries or time, only of texture, of shape, of warmth building beneath his palms. Can you feel that rhythm now? The push, the turn, the fold, the hum. Even if you've never touched dough, imagine it. Imagine the softness, the way it gives slightly, like a slow exhale. Now imagine the baker's hand steady and warm, with flour lining the creases of his fingers like snow on cobblestones. You are right there with him now, in that golden morning, in that flower-scented air. You sit at the wooden table by the oven, a warm mug between your palms. Thomlin hums as he works, and outside, the fog begins to lift from the hills, revealing a sky the color of fresh cream. The village begins its gentle stirrings, boots on gravel, distant laughter, the creak of wagons rolling by. But here, inside the bakery, time stays slow, like honey dripping from a spoon. The loaves begin their rise again, tucked under linen cloths, their breath swelling quietly with life. Thomlin prepares a special one this morning. He adds lavender petals from the garden, just a few, scattered like whispers into the dough, then lemon zest, then a swirl of golden honey from Mr. Alby's jar. He hums a different tune for this one, softer, even slower, a lullaby for someone far away, perhaps, or someone soon to come. Because that's the thing about baking, it's always partly a gift for someone else. The oven is ready now, its heat steady and low, like a sleepy sigh. Thomlin slides the first loaves in, their scent already hinting at comfort to come, and outside the bakery window, a pair of doves perch on the ledge, feathers ruffling in the warming breeze. Let your mind settle there with them, high above the ground, safe and quiet. The air carries the scent of baking bread now, mixed with lavender and firewood. Everything speaks in even the clock ticks slowly. Even the chairs seem to creak in slow motion. You are part of that hush. You are wrapped in it. You don't need to do anything. Just be here, with the warmth, with the bread, with the song that wraps around the dough like a promise. And in the next room, Thomlin sips tea again. He never rushes that part either. He reads a line or two from the old recipe book. The ink faded like memory. He smiles. Not every day needs to be different. Some are beautiful because they are the same, because the oven glows again, because the dough rises again, because the song returns again, and you are here again, too, still resting, still softening, still safe. By mid-morning, Brumley Hollow had slipped into its familiar rhythm, not hurried, not loud, just a slow, steady heartbeat of a place that understood how to be. The bakery, tucked near the bend in the cobbled road, was filled now with the scent of toasted crust and honeyed steam. Loaves rested on wooden, cooling racks, their bellies warm and round, their crusts whispering as they released their last breaths of heat. A few villagers had wandered in quietly, with sleepy eyes and soft greetings. They didn't come only for bread, they came for peace, for that feeling you get when your hands cradle something warm from the oven, and your chest feels lighter, like the world makes just a little more sense. Mrs. Older came first, wrapped in her knitted shawl, holding a little tin to collect her usual. She didn't speak much, just smiled and nodded as Thomlin handed her a seeded oat round wrapped in linen. Then came Eli, the boy who always brought extra coin for Tabunzo on for him, and one for the woodskeeper's dog. Each customer stayed only a moment or two. No one lingered. They didn't need to. The warmth followed them out like a hug clinging to their coats. And still, Thomlin sang, under his breath, barely audible over the creak of the wood and the hum of the oven. But it was there, a hum that lived in the air like dust in sunlight, a tone that curled into the corners of the room like steam from a teacup. You can feel that now, to even here, even far away. Let it wrap around your ears like wool. Let it tuck behind your neck and smooth across your shoulders. This song doesn't need words. It doesn't even need to be remembered. It just is. It exists to soothe, to calm, to cradle. You may find your breathing matching it, without even trying. In and out, just like the dough, rising and resting, rising and resting. Thomlin placed the last of the loaves on the shelf and wiped his hands on his apron. For a moment, he stood very still in the middle of the shop, listening, not to a sound exactly, but to the feel of the room. Like tasting the silence, he stepped outside, just for a breath of fresh air, and the morning mist was lifting now, curling off the rooftops like ghosts, stretching after a long night. The trees in the distance waved slightly in the breeze, and in the hedgerow a few golden leaves had begun to drift down. Even though summer lingered, autumn was gently knocking. He could feel it in the light, softer, sadder, sweeter, a memory pressing into the edge of things. He let the breeze carry over his skin and closed his eyes. And for just a moment, time paused. Not stopped, just paused. The way a song pauses before the final verse. The way a candle flickers before it steadies again. Breathe with him now. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Let that pause ripple through your limbs. Loosen your hands. Soften your jaw. Release the space between your eyebrows. Feel the world grow quieter, inside and out. Thomlin opened his eyes and returned inside. The bell on the door chiming softly like wind through chimes. He began preparing the next round of loaves this time, dark rye and caraway. Strong, steady bread, the kind that stayed fresh through storms and quiet days alike. He thought of the fisherman who might come for it later, of the gardener who liked to toast it and spread it with plum jam. Each loaf held a purpose. Each had a place. And so did he. As his fingers folded the dough, he hummed a deeper tonal lullaby for a storm not yet arrived. The flour rose again in the light, dancing like tiny birds. The fire in the oven settled to a warm, even glow. And across Brumley Hollow, the day moved onward, not with urgency, but with the steady peace of something cared for, the kind of peace you don't find in cities, the kind you don't buy in shops, the kind you grow, need, sing into being. Let your mind linger in this space a little longer. Let your breath slow again, like the flame behind the oven door, like the leaves outside the window, like the cat curled in the corner, belly rising and falling with soft purrs. There is no need to get up now, no need to change anything. You are here, and here is enough. Here is warm, here is safe, here is soft. Midday in Brumley Hollow arrived, not like a trumpet but more like a sigh, a soft exhale from the hills. Shadows shortened. The sun warmed the sides of the bakery. A little breeze stirred the linen curtains that fluttered like soft wings in the window. Inside, Thomlin had just placed the rye loaves into the oven. The smell was deeper now, earthier, with a faint note of smoke and spice. He moved slowly, not because he was tired, but because there was no need to rush. And, in moving slowly, the world stayed soft. The floors creaked gently under his steps, each board a familiar voice underfoot. He made a cup of tea, nothing fancy, just dried mint and chamomile. He poured the hot water slowly into the mug, letting the steam rise and fog his glasses, and then he sat. Not because there was work to do, not because there wasn't, just because sitting is part of the day. Outside the bakery window, a small group of school children passed by. They laughed, but not too loudly, out of respect for the quiet hush of the bakery. Perhaps one of them peeked in and waved. Thomlin raised a flour-dusted hand in return, smiling as they skipped along toward the village square. That smile stayed with him, even after they were gone. Do you feel it? That echo? That tiny warmth? Sometimes joy is so quiet you only notice it by what it leaves behind. The same way you know a candle has burned by the scent in the room. Let yourself notice that feeling, that gentle hum behind your ribs. Not excitement, not energy, but contentment. It wraps around you like the baker's apron, like a story you've heard before, but love to hear again. Thomlin sipped his tea and looked toward the shelves. One loaf left from the morning's batch, a lavender lemon round. He wrapped it carefully and tied it with twine, setting it aside. He always saved the last one for her. No, not the girl from the garden, not the memory from dreams. This was someone newer, someone quieter, an older woman who lived near the woods, in a cottage wrapped in ivy. She rarely spoke, but always brought Thomlin a pouch of dried herbs from her garden. He never asked for it, and she never asked for bread. But every few days one would appear in a little cloth satchel by the bakery door, and in return a loaf would be waiting. No notes, no payment, just the rhythm, the giving, the receiving, like breath, in, out. Kindness is a kind of song, too. Thomlin stood and reached for his coat. It was still early, and the oven would keep the shop warm while he stepped out. He placed the wrapped loaf into his satchel and opened the bakery door. The bell chimed softly behind him, and the wind greeted him like an old friend. He took the footpath behind the bakery, one lined with moss and creeping thyme. His boots pressed gently into the earth, and each step crunched the smallest twigs beneath. Birds rustled in the branches overhead. Sunlight blinked through the leaves, softening the edges of the forest path. You're walking there, too, just a few steps behind him. You feel the way the air shifts under the trees, green-tinged, filled with the scent of earth and bark and distant herbs. The bag at Thomlin's side swings gently with each step, and ahead the ivy-wrapped cottage comes into view. A garden sprawls around it untamed, humming with bees and butterflies. Tall foxgloves sway, lavender clusters bob in the wind. A sleepy tabby cat dozes on the sun-warmed stones by the front door. Thomlin doesn't knock. He never does. He simply places the wrapped loaf on the small wooden bench beside the porch. Beside a newly tied bundle of dried lemon balm and violet, he lingers only for a breath, then turns and makes his way back. The rhythm complete, and still he hums, soft and low, a song without words, only warmth. As he walks, the forest seems to echo that hum back to him. The rustling leaves, the swaying flowers, the hush of your own breath in this quiet place. It's all music, just slower than what we're used to hearing. Like the sound of trees remembering, like the feeling of resting, long and deep, and waking only when the light is just right. The bakery returns into view now, a little chimney puffing again, a curl of warmth spilling from the windows, the scent of rye bread drifting onto the path. It welcomes you like a soft blanket. Thomlin opens the door and steps inside. The bell chimes. The world doesn't rush in. It just follows, calmly, quietly, like it knows this is a sacred space, and it is. This little room of song and flower and fire, this place where even the bread rests before the day continues. And you can rest, too. You're part of the rhythm now. Back inside the bakery, the rhythm resumed. Like a song picking up where it left off, the fire welcomed Thumlin back with a low, slow crackle. The scent of baked rye and caraway greeted him like an embrace around his shoulders. The bread was ready. He pulled the loaves from the oven, one by one, each crust dark and full, split gently where the dough had stretched with warmth and time. He placed them on the cooling rack, wood against wood. Soft thud, then silence again. You can imagine standing there, just behind him. You see the steam curling from the loaves white against the golden afternoon light. You feel the warmth wrap around your arms, up your chest, comforting, grounding, real. And if you closed your eyes right now, you could almost smell it, that mingling of earth and grain and fire and song. Thumlin stood still for a moment and let his hand rest lightly on one loaf. Just a touch, not to check its firmness, not to test the crust, but to say thank you. A quiet gratitude passed between baker and bread. Then he smiled, and he turned toward the back of the bakery, toward the corner where a narrow stairwell led to a loft above. A simple room, a single bed tucked under the eaves, a writing desk, a bookshelf full of old recipe books and songs written on folded parchment, a small window overlooking the garden behind the bakery. This was where Thumlin rested, where the day would quiet into stillness again. But not yet. Not quite. First, he poured himself another cup of tea. He didn't drink it right away. He sat and watched the steam rise. Time can stretch, you know. It doesn't always tick in seconds. Sometimes it pools like syrup in a bowl. Thick, sweet, still. And that's where you are now. Inside that pool of time, with the steam curling from the tea, with the warmth on your skin from the oven's breath, with the hush that fills all the little spaces between sounds. You don't need to speak here. You don't even need to think. You're allowed to just be. And as Thumlin sits with his tea, he hums again. Not the songs from earlier. This one is slower, deeper. It starts in the chest and rises up, soft and open. It's not for the bread this time. It's for the quiet, for the dusk that's slowly drawing in around the windows. He hums for the floorboards, the ones worn down, smooth by years of footsteps. He hums for the firewood stacked neatly in the corner, for the linen cloth folded over the loaves. And for you, he hums for you, too, because he knows you're tired. He knows your shoulders carry weight. He knows your breath sometimes catches. He knows your eyes long for softness. So he sings into the room, and into your space, and into your body. You don't need to do anything with it. Just let it rest in the space around your ribs. Let it nest there, like a bird finding a home in the hollow of a tree. Outside, the shadows stretch long across the cobblestone path. The lanterns in the square begin to glow, soft golden orbs against the blue of evening. A horse cart passes slowly, its wheels rumbling like distant thunder made of cloth, and the breeze brings the first chill of night. But inside the bakery, everything is warm. You are warm. Thumlin moves slowly again, placing the remaining loaves into baskets for tomorrow's market. Each one rests with care, lined with linen, like tucked-in children. He lights a candle, then another. Their flames dance in the window glass. He doesn't need bright lights, only flickers, only enough to glow. You can almost feel the flicker of the flame on your cheek. Can you feel it? That soft, warm flutter? like the moment just before you fall asleep, when sound becomes dream, when the room becomes memory, when the world narrows into comfort. Let your hands relax now. Let your spine sink into softness. Thumlin hums again. Just one note now, long and quiet. It stretches through the bakery and beyond, out through the chimney, out across the rooftops of Brumley Hollow, out into the trees and fields, out toward you. The note finds you here, where you rest, where you listen, where you breathe, and in the next moment, the bakery falls silent again. But the song still lingers. In your ears, in your chest, in the warmth wrapped around your ankles like a blanket just pulled from the hearth. You're not alone here. You're held, you're heard, and the world is, for now, completely at peace. Dusk had drawn her velvet curtain across Brumley Hollow. The rooftops dimmed from golden to soft grey. Shadows stretched across the stone path outside the bakery, melting into one another like ink in warm water. And in the windows of Thumlin's bakery, small flames danced 5 candles glowing gently like stars fallen to the earth. The scent inside had changed to no longer the bright, toasty heat of midday bread. Now it was something deeper, a little smoke, a little spice, a little lavender rising from the sachet that sat on the windowsill, half crumbling under its own softness. The world was quiet. Even the birds had gone still. Just now and then, a single chirp, like a thought drifting through sleep. You are still here, aren't you? Yes. Good. Then stay. There's nowhere else to be right now. Let your body grow heavier. Let your limbs melt into the mattress, or the sofa, or wherever you rest. This is your time, your stillness. Thumlin finished tucking the last loaf away in the back pantry. He stood in the center of the bakery and turned in a slow circle, his gaze soft, his eyes reflecting the candlelight like puddles catching moonlight. He wasn't in a rush to go upstairs. There was something sacred about this moment. The in-between. Not day, not night, just the breath between them. He sat again at the small wooden table where the tea had long since cooled. The mug still let off a faint herbal scent. And beside him, a little box, a music box, carved from ashwood and rubbed smooth by many years of hands, turning the little crank on its side. He opened it, and it sang, a gentle lullaby, slow, delicate notes that sounded like raindrops on the edge of a dream. You can hear it now, can't you? Let those notes thread into your mind, one after another, no rush. Let them fall like soft feathers on the pillow of your thoughts. You don't need to follow them. Just let them land. Thumlin closed his eyes. He didn't need to see. He knew every inch of the room, the position of every shelf, the slight lean of the stool by the window, the rough grain of the floor where flour always settled. His body knew the rhythm of this place, and so does yours. You've walked these floors in your mind. You've smelled the loaves as they cool. You've heard the hush between each creak of the wood, and now you can rest inside it. Thumlin stood once more and turned off the oven. The fire hissed its final whisper and fell quiet. A warm hush filled the bakery. He climbed the narrow staircase at the back, each step a soft thump beneath his soles, up until he'd reached the loft, tucked just beneath the eaves. Here, the roof slanted low, the bed sat under the window, dressed in soft wool and linen, a hand-stitched quilt folded at the end. The floor creaked slightly as he crossed it, lighting the final candle of the night. Outside the window, the sky was darkening to velvet blue. A few stars had begun to blink through the thinning clouds, and from below, the scent of bread still lingered faintly, curling up through the floorboards like a familiar tune. Thumlin changed into a soft cotton shirt, folded his day's clothes neatly on the stool, and sat at the edge of the bed. He didn't rush to lie down. He just sat and listened. to the house settling, to the night deepening, to the tiny voice of the candle's flame. You can sit with him now. You don't need to speak. There's no need to move. This is the part of the story where you don't need to know what happens next. You just need to feel the warmth in your toes, the gentle slackening of your jaw, the weight behind your eyes. Yeah, there it is. Sleep is coming, not all at once, but like dusk, soft, slow, kind. Thumlin finally lowered himself into the bed. The mattress let out a small sigh as it welcomed his weight. He pulled the quilt up to his chest, folded one arm beneath his head, and looked once more out the window. He didn't need dreams, not really. His dream lived inside his days, in the song of his oven, the warmth of his loaves, the laughter of children skipping past his door, and in the knowing that sometimes peace is enough. And it is enough. You don't need to chase anything tonight. You don't need to solve or plan or reach. You are already here, already held, already whole. Let yourself soften, let yourself drift, like the song of the bread, like the hush of the stars, like a baker humming quietly into the folds of twilight. Night had arrived completely in Brumley Hollow, the kind of night that wraps around rooftops like a shawl of velvet, a night so quiet even the wind moved carefully tiptoeing through the trees, brushing gently against shuttered windows, and in the loft above the bakery, Thumlin slept. Or perhaps not quite. He lay still, his chest rising slowly under the woolen quilt, his breath even, but behind his closed eyes, his mind wandered, gently, not rushed, not chasing thoughts, just drifting, as you are, too. You don't need to sleep just yet, only drift. Imagine the candle near Thumlin's bed. Its flame grows slower now, softer, curling inward as the wax pools at its base. The light flickers against the sloped ceiling. It dances on the walls, casting little shadows of the dried herbs that hang in bunches, rosemary, sage. A bit of thyme. Their scent lingers in the air, mixed with the memory of baked bread and evening tea. Each breath you take is full of calm, full of that scent, full of the rhythm of a room that knows rest. Outside, the cobblestones are cool. A fox slips through the alley behind the bakery, its fur catching a sliver of moonlight. It moves without sound, barely brushing the fallen leaves. The village is asleep. The candles in windows have winked out, one by one, and stillness sits over Brumley Hollow like a warm blanket laid over a child. Even the bells in the chapel tower are silent. Time, now, is not measured in hours. It's measured in heartbeats, in sighs, in the soft creak of wood as the bakery walls settle into sleep. You are there. Yes, still here. Still safe, still warm. Thumlin turns gently in his bed, shifting under the quilt. A low exhale escapes his lips, and he smiles just faintly, the way people do when they feel safe, the way you might be smiling now. He dreams of kneading dough under morning light, of golden crusts, of warm mugs passed between old friends, but mostly he dreams of quiet. The same quiet that surrounds you now. Listen closely. What do you hear? Nothing urgent, nothing sharp, only the slow rhythm of the night. A soft thump, perhaps a shutter swaying lightly in the wind. The distant call of an owl echoed faintly through the hills. Your own breath, slowing even more now, as your body sinks deeper. There is a kind of magic in this hour. The kind that doesn't ask to be noticed. It just is. It lives in the hush, in the dark velvet of the sky, in the tiny glimmers of starlight above Thumlin's bakery. They are the same stars above you now. They've watched you your whole life. They've never rushed you, never pushed, just blinked and waited for you to remember how small your worries are in all that light, and how big your peace can be. Let yourself go heavier, your jaw can soften now. Your hands can let go, your toes unclenched, your eyelids heavy as warm stones. And just for this moment, you don't need to be anything other than exactly what you are. Resting, breathing, becoming quiet inside. Thomlin's breathing deepens. The candle beside him gutters once, then falls into darkness. And now the loft is wrapped in the soft dark of deep night. But you're not afraid. There's no fear here, only rest. The kind of rest that heals, that restores, the kind of stillness that grows things. Outside, the wind hushes even further, as if not to wake the village, and the stars shine a little brighter, their silver beams pooling over the rooftops, trickling down into chimneys, brushing through keyholes. Even the bread cooling downstairs seems to hum with sleep. The entire world yours, and Tomlin's has slowed to the pace of dreams, and you're floating in it, carried, wrapped, nothing to reach for, nothing to fix, just warmth, just the gentle lull of a story that keeps you company in the dark. And even if sleep hasn't come yet, it's near, waiting patiently in the wings. It will come, like morning does, softly, certain. But for now, let's stay in the night a little longer. Let's listen to the stillness. Let's lie beside the baker, under the eaves of a cottage that smells like flour and thyme. Let the quiet fill you. Let it rise like dough in your chest, light and warm and full. You're doing beautifully, just by being still, just by being here. Midnight had passed, softly, without announcement, without fanfare. In Brumley Hollow, the night had settled completely. Thomlin's breathing was deep, and even a slow rhythm rising from beneath his quilt. But downstairs, a different kind of hush now lived in the bakery. A sacred kind, the kind of stillness that settles over spaces when no one is watching. The fire in the hearth was only ember now, faint red eyes glowing beneath a blanket of ash. But the room was still warm, held, protected. Above, the beams of the ceiling groaned once in their sleep, as if dreaming of the trees they once were. Everything rested, even the flour, settled soft on countertops, no longer stirred by the day's movements. And yet, something small stirred. Not a person, not a mouse or bird, just energy, the quiet kind, the presence that fills a room that has known love. And you feel it, even here, listening, as if you could lean your ear to the wood grain and hear the memory of hands kneading dough, as if the very walls could hum the songs they've heard, as if silence, in the right place, can sing back to you. And maybe it does. Maybe it is, right now, to you, a lullaby with no words, only feeling, only warmth. And maybe, as you lie there, you notice your breath has slowed. Not because you're trying, but because your body knows it's time to soften, to drift, to release. All around you, the hush grows deeper, like a blanket that keeps unfolding, layer after layer of quiet, and inside the loft, Thomlin stirs just slightly. two glimmer on the brass buttons of his coat, neatly hung on a hook near the stairs. And outside, the world keeps sleeping. Even the trees stand still, their branches unmoving in the dark, like they are holding something precious in their leaves. And they are. They're holding this moment. For you. For all of us. Because sometimes the world needs to stop. To pause. To breathe. And this moment is just that. A long, deep breath that belongs to you. You don't have to do anything. You don't even need to think. Just lie there. Let your weight fall completely into your bed. Let your thoughts slow like syrup over warm bread. Let your heart beat softly. Let your mind drift near destination needed. If a thought arises, let it float like flower in the airlight, slow, settling gently out of sight. You are in the deepest pocket of night now. The safest part, the hidden fold of time where nothing is asked of you. And in the bakery, not even the shadows move. Everything waits, everything listens, everything rests, including you. Especially you. The candle in the hallway outside Thomlin's room burns low now, its wick curls in on itself. The flame, a soft golden dome, nearly gone. It flickers once, twice, then goes out. Darkness welcomes the loft, but it is not empty. It is not cold. It holds every breath, every hum, every echo of a baker's song. And you, let yourself feel that. You're being held in story. In night, in rest. This is not the end. It is a middle. A soft chapter with no urgency, no noise, only this, only now. Sleep, if it has not come already, draws even closer. You can feel it just at the edge, hovering like dew on a leaf. Let it land, let it wrap around you, the way the scent of rye wraps around a morning kitchen. Let it rise and fall with your breath. Let it carry you where you need to go. No effort, just ease. Just warmth, just sleep. The hours passed unnoticed, as they often do in the deep night. No clocks chimed, no footsteps stirred, only the quiet rhythm of sleeping breath, rising and falling like the tide. In the bakery loft, Thomlin lay still, his dreams a soft drift of images, some from childhood, some from nowhere at all. A golden field, a voice humming, the curl of a kitten's tail, the kind of dreams that don't make sense in the light of day but feel true in the dark. And downstairs, the bakery glowed faintly in the memory of warmth. The fire had gone to ash, but the scent still lingered. Soft spice, wheat, perhaps a hint of cardamom from the last batch of breakfast buns. Even the pans, cooling on the shelf, seemed to exhale contentment. The wooden spoon lay beside a bowl, crusted with a film of dried dough. The rolling pin rested on its cloth. Everything was still, and yet everything felt alive. Not in motion, but in presence. Can you feel that? That kind of life that exists in quiet things. A loaf, still warm. A dish towel left to dry. A room filled with the echo of song. There's a rhythm in it, and your body knows it. Your breath follows it now. Long, gentle, unhurried, as you lie in your own quiet room. Perhaps you can feel the same peace wrapping around you as wraps around the bakery. It doesn't need your attention. It just is. Peace. Just is. Above the loft, the sky began to deepen toward its coldest point, just before the first hint of dawn, when the stars shine their hardest, when time feels suspended neither night nor morning, a hush that even birds don't break. And outside Thomlin's bakery, the village was completely still. The cobbled streets, dusted with moonlight, the hedgerows heavy with dew, chimneys motionless in silhouette, It was as if Brumley Hollow had fallen under a spell. A kind one, a spell of rest, of breath, of quiet. And you, dear listener, are under it too. You don't need to escape it. You don't need to wake up just yet. This moment was made for you. This hour belongs to dreamers, to wanderers of the night sky, to those who love the hush between moments, to those who listen, even when all seems still. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. Nothing, and that's everything. In the loft, Thomlin stirred slightly. Not waking, just turning in his sleep. A sigh escaped his lips, low and long, the kind made when even your dreams are full of ease. He curled slightly, one hand resting beneath his cheek, the quilt rising just below his chin. No thoughts chased him, no lists, no musts, or only breath, only rest. And you? Can you match that ease? Try now. Let your shoulders drop just a little more. Let your hands fall, open and soft. Let your mind slip further from focus. Imagine the hush of flour falling from your thoughts. One soft dusting at a time. Nothing to hold, nothing to grasp. Just softness, just story. Let this moment hold you. Let it sing in you like the notes of a lullaby with no words. The kind your body understands. The kind your bones remember. Outside, the moon began to tilt just slightly toward the edge of the horizon. A sign that dawn would come eventually. But not yet. There was still time to rest. Still time to drift in the sea of sleep. And the stars above Brumley Hollow blinked slowly, as if keeping watch, as if whispering, "You are safe, you are still, you are loved." Let those words wrap around you, not as thoughts, not even as feelings, but as warmth, as presence, as the quiet rhythm of breath and stillness. Thomlin didn't need to dream of ovens or loaves or morning markets. This night, this very moment was the dream. And you are in it, still floating, still warm, still carried. There is no rush here. We will stay in this quiet together. A little longer, no end, no beginning, just this, just now. In the slow hours before dawn, time stretched, not like a thread pulled tight but like a feather drifting downward, weightless and calm. Thomlin slept, the entire village slept, and so did the dough. Yes, the very dough the baker had mixed just before dusk, covered in a linen cloth, and set into the cool of the proving drawer. Even now, it rested, swelling slowly, breathing in its own way, alive with quiet magic, and if you listened, truly listened, you might imagine you could hear it. A slow sound, a hush, a rise, like breath through soft hands. You see, in Thomlin's bakery, even the dough learned rest. He had always whispered to it, sung to it, even when no one else believed in such things. And now, the dough like you was wrapped in stillness, held in the soft promise that nothing is required of it but time. And oh, how beautiful things become when given time. Let that thought linger. Let it settle into the corners of your mind like flower in sunlight. You don't have to rush. You don't have to bloom all at once. You are like dough in a linen-lined bowl. You are allowed to rise slowly. You are allowed to rest. Beneath the rafters of the bakery loft, Thomlin's breath remained steady. His dreams deeper now. Dreams without edges. Dreams that weren't made of stories, but of feelings, warmth, belonging, stillness. A gentle hum beneath all things, as if the world, too, was dreaming. And perhaps it was. Outside, a low breeze wound its way through the hollow. It rustled the leaves gently, without urgency, and a distant owl called once more, its sound mellow, never startling. Even the trees seemed to sleep with one eye open, swaying ever so faintly in the breeze, whispering to each other in the ancient tongue of bark and root. If you imagined yourself walking through the hollow right now, just a silent figure wandering barefoot down the path, do you feel nothing but softness? The cool of the cobblestone, the brush of ivy across your ankles, the mist curling low around hedgerows. But you're not walking, you're resting, and that's just as sacred. The body knows when it's time to pause, and yours is doing exactly that. Drifting, unfolding, becoming weightless. Like the doe downstairs, you and the doe are not so different, both cradled, both quiet, both full of potential not yet asked of you. And that is a kindness. The night brings this freedom, not to act, but simply to be. The loft creaked to gain a soft sound, like the sigh of old wood remembering rain. But nothing stirred. Thumlin, now curled under his quilt, lay with one hand over his heart, and perhaps, in the folds of his dreaming, he heard the sound of flour falling through his fingers, or the warm chorus of morning customers, though still hours away. Or maybe, just maybe, he heard you. Not your voice, not your steps, but your presence. Yes, even in this story space, across time, across pages, your presence matters. It is felt. This story is a conversation, one where no words need to be spoken, where silence carries meaning, and in that silence, you are heard. You are welcome. You belong. Let that settle. Let your ribs expand, just a little. Let your breath come deeper, slower. You've been doing so well, just by resting, just by letting go. Sleep isn't something you must chase. It arrives, like morning, like a rising loaf, like the hush between verses of a lullaby. Let it arrive. Don't reach. Only breathe. Only float. Outside the bakery, a faint mist began to gather. It crawled low to the ground, curling around fences, drifting into gardens, weaving through the legs of lampposts. It did not disturb, it only softened, the kind of mist that makes everything look gentler, like the world is being slowly erased, only to be redrawn in pastels by morning light. And soon, morning would come. But not yet. We are still in the dream time, still in the hush. And you, dear listener, are still floating. No rush, no reason to return just yet. Just stay a little longer, wrapped in warmth, wrapped in story, wrapped in night. The mist continued to gather low, silvery, serene, but high above the bakery, where chimney smoke once curled in the evenings, the first hint of dawn began to bloom. Not a flash, not a bright reveal, just a slow lightening of the world, the kind of morning that arrives like a whisper, a gentle nudge to say, "You've done enough." It's a new day. Inside the bakery, the loft still held its warmth. Thomlin had not yet stirred, but the room was no longer dark. A quiet blue crept across the beams, the window pane blushed with soft gold, and in the kitchen below, the air changed. The fire, which had died to ash, caught again with a quiet pop, thanks to a fresh log placed gently on it hours before sleep. A warm red glow spread through the hearth, a yawn of light, a slow stretch, and the dough still resting in the proving drawer. It had risen beautifully, lifted not by rush, not by force, but by time, by stillness, by song. Yes, even while the world slept. The baker's soft hums had lingered, long after his voice had gone quiet. It was said quietly only by the old ones that bread hears music, that it responds to care, that it knows love, and perhaps you, lying there still, know the same truth. You respond not to pressure, but to peace, not to noise, but to soft words, not to speed, but to space. Let yourself feel that. Let yourself rise slowly with the sun. You don't have to open your eyes just yet. You don't have to leave this soft story. It will linger with you like a warm crust beneath your fingertips. And outside Brumley Hollow began to stir. A single bird chirped, then another. A rooster called distantly from one of the farms by the wood, and inside the loft, Thomlin's breath shifted, still deep, still slow, but different. He turned onto his back and let out a long sigh, the kind that empties sleep and calls in morning. He blinked up at the wooden beams above, still drowsy, but smiling, for in the folds of his dream he had known something beautiful, something still with him. Perhaps it was the hush of a quiet listener, perhaps the feel of an unseen friend breathing alongside his breath, or maybe the warmth of a loaf shared in silence with someone who understood stillness the way he did. He sat up slowly, quilt falling from his shoulders, feet touching the floor, and from below the faint scent of warm dough reached him. Risen, ready, he stood, stretched, yawned, and as he made his way down the narrow stairs, he hummed. Just a little, just enough to wake the house. A low, round hum, half melody, half memory. He pulled back the cloth from the dough and smiled. It had risen well, so well. He touched it gently with the tips of his fingers, respectful of the work it had done in the night. Then he turned to the hearth, where the oven had warmed through, and without rush, without thought, he began again. The kneading, the folding, the shaping, but he did it slowly today, softer than usual, as if still dreaming. And all the while he hummed, not for himself, not for the bread, but perhaps for you, the unseen presence that joined him through the story of the night, the listener in the quiet, the soul that drifted with him through the mist. Because stories are shared spaces. They're not just told, they're lived, and this one, it lives in you now. So, as Thomlin slid the first loaf into the oven, the smell of morning bread curling up to meet the dawn, he paused and turned his face to the light. He didn't say anything, didn't need to, but his heart was full of flour, of music, of quiet connection, and the bakery old wooden warm breathed in rhythm with him. It always had. Outside, the village woke in its own time. Doors creaked open. Fires were lit. Chickens clucked in straw. But inside the bakery was the sound of a voice, just barely humming, a voice without words. Only warmth, only rest, only story. And you carry it now. You are the warmth. You are the breath. You are the one who listened. And for that, you are part of the song. Even as you drift into deeper sleep, even as you forget the words, the feeling will stay. Like the scent of bread long after it's eaten, like the memory of hands folding dough with love, like the hush of the night before the sun rises. You don't need to remember the story to carry it with you. It's already inside you, soft and full, like bread. So now, dear listener, let yourself slip completely into sleep. No resistance, no holding on. Just let go, float, and know that somewhere in a foggy little hamlet, a baker is humming, and the bread is rising, and all is well, all is still, all is safe, all is home.